This is part 3. How should sentence 3 be changed? This is number 17. Sentence 3 changed. If you underline keywords in your question, give yourself a tally mark. When we look at sentence 3, it's right here. We did find a mistake. We tried to plug in a name for coach and it wouldn't work. That means that coach is not a proper noun. So coach should be lowercase. So when I look over here, I see A, that coach should be lowercase. Dot for possibility or maybe baby on A. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. I don't even have to go plug this back in. Board to bored. It ends in a vowel or in a consonant and an E, or consonant vowel. So you do not need to double this. You don't even have to go back and plug that in. That is SP. You don't need the other R. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. Insert a comma after practice. Let's see if we need a comma after practice. There is a fanboy word right here, but let's see if we need a comma right there. So if you circle the fanboy and you check on this side, I was so bad that I figured the coach wouldn't care if I got bored at practice. That's a complete sentence. Laid down in the outfield. Well, we don't know who laid down in the outfield. We know that I laid down in the outfield, but it doesn't say I right here, so this is not a complete sentence. So it's complete on the left, not on the right, so it does not need a comma in order to make it right. So in this case, it is comma not needed. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. Sentence 3 should not be changed. You should bloop out not, and it should just say sentence 3 should be changed. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. So my only correct answer on that is A, and I have it fixed this way in the story, so I know I'm correct. So if you picked A as your correct answer and you fixed it that way in your story, give yourself a tally mark. Number 18. What change needs to be made in sentence 9? You should have underlined the keywords change and sentence 9. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. When I look over here at sentence 9, this one was really tricky. This one was really tricky. And if you couldn't figure this one out, I hope that you plugged in the other answer choices and realized that this was the only one that it could have been. Because these two words are tricky words. We said that good is talking about throwing and good is talking about catching. And good generally helps give more information about nouns, where well is more gives more information about verbs, which means it's an adverb. So in this case, we changed good to well. And it's a dot for possibility on J. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. Now, you might not have got that one automatically, but it's like I said, hopefully when you went back and plugged in these 3 answer choices, you would know that that this was the only one that it could have been. So right here, change little to little, which is misspelled. So you should have put SP. You could have either drawn arrows and switched those two around or just blooped it out and written it correctly. Little. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. Change the comma to a period. Well, let's see if we can make it 2 complete sentences on this. I was sure that with a little more practice, period, I would be catching and throwing just as good as Stan does. Well, on this side, I was sure that with a little more practice, that's not a complete sentence. That leaves you hanging. I would be catching and throwing just as good as Stan does. This one makes sense. So, you can't put a period for the opening clause. This needs to be a comma. So on this one, change a comma to a period. You could say comma needed. You could say period not needed. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. Insert a comma after catching. Let's look and see if we need a comma after catching. Well, there is a fanboy word here. So let's check before the fanboy and after the fanboy and see if we need a comma. I was sure that with a little more practice, I would be catching. that sounds good. That sounds like a complete sentence. But on this side, throwing just as good as stand. Who would be throwing? We don't have a subject in that sentence, so this is not a complete sentence. So it's complete on the left, it's not complete on the right, so it does not need a comma to make it right. So in this case, you would write, comma, not needed. If you did that, give yourself a tally mark. My only correct answer on that is J. It's like I said, you might not have known the difference between good and well, but we know that this one's not right. We know that this one's not right, and we know that this one's not right, so the only answer that it could be is J. If you picked J as your correct answer and you fixed it that way in your story, give yourself a tally mark.